Hey, I'm Danny Gonzalez with IndustrialSage. Today I have the CEO of Nanotronics, Matthew Putman. Thank you, Matthew, so much for joining me today on IndustrialSage.
That's great to be here. Thanks.
So today we're going to be talking about a lot of things that a lot of manufacturers are very concerned about. Obviously, in the industry and in the world, we're going through COVID-19. It's disrupting a lot of supply chains. It's disrupting a lot of lives. There's kind of what you guys are doing, how you guys are responding, and just kind of maybe share some ideas around there and just some insights around the supply chain and what you guys are seeing.
Sure. Um, we're very lucky, even though clearly COVID-19 affects us all in kind of devastating ways. The thing that we're sort of unique and is interesting is that we're a science and technology company that works in a lot of segments of technology. So we work with companies in genomics, companies in semiconductors, companies in autonomous vehicles and quantum computing. So we get to see, sort of a broad view of the challenges that people are facing, and there are a lot of similarities between these right now, and it's really making people consider how we build things in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get too far down the road on there, maybe for those who aren't familiar with Nanotronics, can you tell me a little bit about who you are, your company? I know you guys do some manufacturing, where you're manufacturing, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so Nanotronics makes a combination of artificial intelligence software, and that software is used for controlling factories. Now, we actually have our own factories where we make robotics. We make a super resolution microscope. So we have a way of doing analytics and analysis, but not in a lab somewhere, but on factory floors themselves. So we are a factory in Brooklyn, New York, in Hollister, California, in Akron, Ohio. We have these facilities where we build things, but most of all, our customers build things. So we're part of a supply chain. We tend to be very distributed though. So we do everything from machining our parts, assembling them, to adding this software to it. So we've seen the value of trying to shrink the supply chain in order to make us less vulnerable, and working with our customers that have fairly close proximity to us to make them less vulnerable as well to things like COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you mentioned, so you said Ohio, California, and New York. Those are three states right now where there's pretty much a shelter in place, or it's locked down for better. How are you guys handling that?
So because we have cared about this idea of going, start to finish, like everybody else, supply chains mean things to us too. We have customers all over the world, and we do have some suppliers, but we can continue to build things. We don't stop because we're not having to get things from all over the world in order to build our robotics. Now, that's nice for us in a way. We can keep going on strange things like staggered shifts, trying to keep our staffing healthy through all of this, and of course to ship things that are contamination free for our customers as well. But we can at least make things, and we can make them for some crucial areas right now. Things like companies that make masks, companies that do gene sequencing, something called PCR that is important for tests for COVID. We're lucky that we can actually still be involved with that. But we see the suffering certainly throughout our customers, and we see it's of course hard for us too to try to figure out how you balance these things of safety and long-term planning with short-term urgency.
Yeah, so to be clear too, I mean, so you guys are considered an essential business, so your operations are still able to be open in all of those states. As you mentioned, you guys are helping with supplying a lot of those critical supplies. How much of that were you doing before this versus after? Has any of that changed?
Strangely enough, we were working on this stuff for years and years. So our customers We're working on something called UVC, which are UV LEDs
Okay.
that work for purification. They've been extremely expensive in the past, so you don't see them in every hospital, clinic, office. We're looking to make those less expensive. This is a project we've already been involved with for many years. We work with the company that makes the largest company of hard drive manufacturers that power the cloud. Without the cloud, we don't have this conversation
Nope.
here.
Yeah.
These are things that we have been involved with for a long time and are lucky to have those connections. Of course, we push it harder and faster than ever right now. And so, our team is, I think, working harder, sleeping less, feeling the urgency right now in ways that we didn't before, but it's something we've cared about for a long time.
Yeah, how are you addressing, let's say, your workforce with that? Obviously, you're essential, very essential. We need to keep these pieces moving so that not only you guys can help supply chains down the line and so on and so forth, but in regards to maybe illnesses that might happen, how are you guys kind of safeguarding your labor force in your facilities, and what does that look like?
Well, you had mentioned when we started this that while we're talking, things are changing.
Yes.
And it's for sure that we have to here adapt to all these changes and pivot with it. So, but by the time anybody's hearing this, my answer may be completely different.
Very true. Yeah.
Right now, trying to make sure that social distancing is something that can happen not just outside of our offices and factories, but within them as well.
Yeah.
So we have people spread out. We don't have more than two people working in a single room together, even though we have a couple hundred people.
Yeah.
We try to space them out in this type of way. We have them in different buildings where possible. We have them on different shifts than they would be before. We have some working from home that aren't touching our machines themselves and have the chance to work from home. Um, you know, it's constantly being addressed while making sure that we can keep moving along as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the morale? How is everybody? Is it a call to arms, saying, or is it I mean, what does that look like?
I've absolutely been amazed by the dedication of the people here. We're accomplishing, and I say we, I mean, it's the team really is accomplishing enormous amounts. Um, I worked on a project last week where we had two of our roles called solutions architects that work on new problems that were sending me updates on a new type of mask that we're doing, face mask for a customer that will allow that to be scaled faster. And their shift was far over. They could have gone home. They stayed late. I don't expect that of anybody. I mean, people need to be with their families right now. People need to be safe. But it certainly does seem to be a call to action for a lot of them. And some of that is also, they've been doing projects for years that they could maybe see happening in 6 months from now. Now we are pushed to get them done in a week and in 2 weeks. Life seems shorter now. I don't mean that in as desperate a way that it sounds. I don't think that I do think we will survive this, but we are thinking in shorter time spans now. And, I think there's a certain amount of excitement that their work will get out faster than before. Now that doesn't apply to everybody. If they are sick, if they're scared, if their family isn't well, you deal with it in entirely different ways. And, I have to really work on being sensitive to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I imagine a difficult balance. So, um, what has it been like? I mean, for you, I imagine things are going nuts. Phone calls, if things are constantly changing. I guess Trump passed and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was the Production Defense Act, something. Basically, the fact that they can nationalize and mobilize manufacturing to be able to, and you're hearing of contracts being rolled out. There's stories of, I think with GM and Ford talking about how they're going to go and possibly shift the line and start producing manufacturing ventilators and whatnot. Is that something that would affect you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's old school war mobilization,
Yeah.
and it's that is incredibly positive to see rather than shuttered factories.
Hmm.
We're actually starting to work with a couple of companies that their production was lower and they had done something else in the past, and now they can work on things like UVC that I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
And we think the government should support that. Other private investors should support that. We certainly will. And it has to happen faster than before. But yeah, we see this, in war times before.
Yeah.
But this is not a single country now. This is the way the world is working and the way that we have to come together. Even if we can't come together physically the way we used to, our businesses can come together in order to try to figure out both how to deal with the health issue right now, how to deal with supply chain issues, but also to deal with invention. There's incredible opportunities in synthetic biology right now for creating new types of vaccines and treatments.
Hmm.
This wasn't something that captivated the public's attention in the way that it is now. It's a mobilization in this regard as well. So there are a chance for things to happen even as we suffer through it right now.
What do going through, looking forward, I guess, in the next, who knows, 30, 60, 90 days, name a time frame. What do you think, what are some of the learnings, and you just mentioned there that you're starting to see some more innovation that you otherwise wouldn't in this space. What are some of those other things you think that the industry is going to learn and be able to take away from this?
Yeah, no, I do want to say that I do think the innovation was happening. The innovation wasn't scaling as fast as it should.
Yeah.
There were barriers in the way, sometimes just barriers caused by society in general, not realizing some of it's bureaucracy, some of it's institutions, and sometimes it's just our will to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just stasis in how we think. So those are things in the areas of synthetic biology and the areas of material science, advanced materials, and the things like additive manufacturing. And I think that when it comes to supply chains, to reduce the way we think of a supply in general. I think it was Matt Ridley, the geneticist writer who was in the House of Lords, who I admire greatly, who said, not in a negative way at all, because trade has brought enormous amount of wealth to nations, but he said that that there's not, in a computer mouse, not a single human on the planet would be able to make this. There are so many components that this requires an enormously large supply chain.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to create a factory? What does it mean to be localized in order to be able to make something, not have something that is out of our control that we won't be able to make if we have to socially distance? I think we'll learn that lesson here and start to try to think in those ways.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think, I remember, the whole fact that it's a global economy, and the whole globalization aspect piece, all the way from your customers to supply chain piece. Do you think do you think that's going to shrink over the next several years?
So, so what I think and what I hope, let's say.
Yeah, I hear you there.
I tend to be one of the last utopians around. I want replicators to exist as in a Star Trek style replicator. The very nature of looking at utopian sci-fi is not about isolationism or nationalism. Mm-hmm. It's about a federation. It's about everybody working in peacetime. At the same time, by doing that, having this self-sufficiency. So I think that we will notice, and I hope we will notice, that Korea, Italy, and China have all suffered the way that the United States has suffered, but also recognize that it has disrupted the way that we can do business across those different countries. Mm-hmm. So we should be united in mission, but at the same time be able to build on our own. We need mineral resources right now are heavily owned by one country. So, rare earth materials are heavily Chinese owned,
Yeah.
even outside of China. It's important that United States realizes that we don't have these rare earth materials and tries to build with what we do have, or tries to collaborate with China on this. So there are a lot of things that should come to mind as necessary in order to have this kind of distribution of manufacturing that maybe we didn't all realize in a hyper-globalized world. It's still going to be a globalized world, but it is one where we need to start being able to take care and build things and know what we are building right here in the United States.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me, actually, I had a question that an international business professor asked me, way back when I was in college. I think it was senior year, and it was the question, globalization, is it good or is it bad? What is it? It's like, well, I don't know that it's, I don't think you can say one way or the other whether it's good or bad, but certainly we're seeing right now a big challenge,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, it's one of there's probably a trick question in a sense. It's people I think that people that fall on an extreme of these two things are missing these subtle points.
Exactly.
At the same time, realizing that the globe is a small place is necessary. So globalization, meaning working with our human neighbors and the rest of the planet, still remains important. So Nanotronics tries to do this as well. We're located in the Brooklyn Navy Yards in New York, and the Brooklyn Navy Yards used to be the largest manufacturing center in the New York tri-state area until the 1960s. This is where warships were built for both world wars, and it went without much manufacturing at all. And in a global economy, the way that we're talking about, there were sort of towns all over the place that did different parts of the supply chain. I'm from Akron, Ohio, where they made tires. There were cars made in Detroit. This is the way that the war, even within the United States, worked. We're doing something about taking distributed manufacturing and putting it back in the city, putting it in Brooklyn that used to be, right, we're looking at Manhattan from our offices. Used to be exactly where the hub of manufacturing was. And we're in one of the older buildings that used to be for the first iron plating was done, and we've made a very modern structure. It's being manufactured, put together right now, where you have production. So this distributed production that does everything from making the parts to testing, adding computation and shipping them, to above that having the best R&D engineers that are working on AI, and they can look down over the factory floor, watch the things that are being made, which, by the way, those jobs are as high tech as the R&D engineers. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their hands on the product and on a certain high tech way of doing things. But they can try their artificial intelligence, which will eventually go to companies that are making autonomous vehicles and quantum computers and all of these exciting things. They can see it on us making our products, our microscopes, our automation and robotics. Mm-hmm. So it's a way to completely close that loop. And if people come into our factory, they will see hopefully a blueprint, not only of what more Nanotronics factories should be at some point, but the way that you should be able to make almost anything. So it's a path towards this ultimate small distributed system, like a replicator that we talked about, but at least a small factory that a startup company can grow into the way that we did.
Well, excellent. Well, certainly interesting times right now, very strange times, but also I think what I'm hearing is a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope that we're going to come out, we're going to learn from this. I want to thank you and for what you and your company is doing, your employees are doing, to be able to help to really to be an answer to the challenge that's going on, not just like immediately, but in the future. I think that what you were talking about, how people are saying, taking that call to arms, so to speak, and saying, we've got to help, do this innovation, this piece that we were working on before. Now we can put it into out in the market and help get masks out, help get all these critical supplies out. That's super important right now.
Well, thank you too. I mean, you're here interviewing me about this today when people are hunkering down, and I appreciate you doing that.
Well, no, thank you. Hopefully we can, be, help to be a little part of the solution. But, I think that what you guys are doing is fantastic. Thank you. We want to get this out to other manufacturers, other companies, so they can, share some hope, and also just share some ideas and thoughts. Like, hey, this is where things are going. This is where we need to be thinking, and go from there.
Great.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Look forward to getting to know you better.
It's going to be awesome. All right. Well, that was I really enjoyed that episode as we cover some topics and talk to Nanotronics about their response to COVID-19, what they're doing. They are an essential business and they're helping with critical supply chains and a lot of critical supplies for the medical space, for just all across different supply chains. So you're seeing this a lot. We're going to be interviewing some additional companies as well throughout the week. To hear about their responses and what they're doing to help to really share some best practices, really share that hope. And I think there's a lot of learnings that we're going to come out from this that's really going to be able to apply to tomorrow and beyond. So thank you for watching. We'll be back soon with another episode of Industrial Sage. Thanks for watching or listening.